Hannah Floyd, welcome to Writers in Relationship.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Yes, very much. Oh, and this is a joint post with the Hodgepodge Literature and Art Substack, and I always forget to say that. But I was actually saying before I hit record that it's great to meet you. And I just had a conversation interview with Heather Pagano, who is a colleague of mine, and she was telling me that you all know each other from, is it a fantasy writing group?
It's called Inked Voices, and it's really amazing online writers group.
I'm part of that.
Um,
I'm part of that
yeah,
community.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course it is. Of course, I've seen you on there. Yes, and
that's
so
so
we're
great.
um, I think it's Spec Shorts, the group, which is just for speculative short stories. And that's where I met up with Heather, and she mentioned Hotchpotch and posted the link to submit. So that was how I got involved with Hotchpotch because I took up the challenge.
For what? For the drabbles? Or was it for the shorts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I actually have a funny story to share about the Hotchpotch Drabbles entry. Like the first story that I sent off, um, I'm sitting with my husband trying to do some writing, and I just couldn't get started. And it was almost time to pick up my son from school. And I said, you know what? Let's just set a 5 minute timer and we'll both write something for this hodgepodge art, our art submission. So we both loaded it up. We set a 5 minute timer. Um, and I think I may have spent 10 minutes editing it afterwards and then sent it off. And I was so excited to get accepted. So it came out over
Did your
5 minutes.
husband also do one?
He did, but he never sent his off.
Oh, this is so funny. You know,
And it,
go
it
ahead.
was it's been amazing because I hadn't been published for years before that. And it was so nice to be published in Hotchpotch, which turned out to be so welcoming and to open so many friendly doors.
I also love that it does not have to take these long swaths of time and like you can just sometimes it's fast, right?
Yes. Yeah, we just literally set a 5 minute timer.
Oh, it's great. Okay, so writers out there, set 5 minute timers and see what you come like sometimes that pressure can push it. Like, do you feel like that timer gave you something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was also doing it with my husband there as well. Like we both did it as a little challenge. We were accountable to each other, so to speak.
It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. And I love that there's the limit of the timer and then the connection and the partnership with like doing it in tandem with someone like that's no, it's
But
just not it's not how we normally think of ourselves, right?
yeah, exactly. But I also felt like a bit of a fraud, a little bit of imposter syndrome because it's like, oh, but I only got published with this tiny story that's not even 100 words, and I only wrote it in a 5 minute timer, so it's not like my real writing that I spent years working on.
Yeah, and that's funny too, because like that goes into like what do we hold as legitimate, right?
Right? It has to have blood, sweat, and tears for it to be legitimate, right?
It's really, really funny. Yeah, I had this one scene in a play, and it was the same kind of thing where I had given myself, very short amount of time, and it's the one scene in this play that had never changed from the begin, and the play had like a 6 year evolution and development period. That scene never changed. Nobody wanted it's perfect as it was. I'm like, how
Oh
did
my God.
it happen?
It's the one thing that they could not possibly change.
So funny. So, Hannah, tell us a little bit about where you are, your setting, and maybe how that filters into your work in any way.
Where literally I am. So I'm sitting in our studio, which is a space at the back of our house, which I use kind of like to do my yoga in. Um, There's also a desk in the corner, and it has wooden beams across the ceiling. Um, so my son uses it as kind of like a swing. So, so it's kind of it's a bit of a alternative space within the house, shall we say?
Is that where you do most of your writing?
Well, mm, I sometimes write in here, but um, I'm more likely to do my yoga in here than write.
And where are you in the greater sense of the word?
So we live in Linton in Cambridgeshire, which is it's not that close to Cambridge. It's about 10 miles from the city centre. And that takes about 40 minutes by bus. Um, but we our postcode is Cambridge, and it identifies as a suburb of Cambridge, so like sort of. Um, and there's quite a lot of there's still quite a lot of academics here, um, and it's a very active village. So there's loads and loads of things happening, but it's quite white dominated. Although because yeah, there's been more of an ethnic mix in the last 5 years, I'm guessing, which is nice.
And do you feel that that sort of suburban setting with, maybe an academic tinge to the culture, like does that affect your writing or does it filter into your writing in some way?
Um, I suppose I was walking down the road, I think yesterday or the day before, and I was looking in some windows as I went past. So there's a bit of a strange trend in the UK that you will see uh, English flags being put up everywhere at junctions, at crossroads, and these are being put up by reform activists. I don't know if you've heard of the Reform Party. It's more of a right-wing nationalist kind of movement that's anti-immigrant and so on. But walking up the road in my area, there's a few windows that have got a sort of everyone welcome here poster in their windows. And they've got they've got a Union Jack with different colored arms holding hands in the middle, like instead of the stripes. Um, and that made me feel a little bit a sense of relief, I suppose, that there are at least some people in my village that are at least supporting the ethnic mix that's so valuable in this country.
And I'm in Canada, and we've that's happening here, not as much as the
Mm.
States, but it does seem like it's a dynamic happening in Europe and North America. Like that's a international dynamic. Um, I mean, has that come into your social world? Like, have you seen that in people that you know, that tension between those two kind of groups?
Yeah, it definitely reared its head during Brexit. Talking to fellow parents at the school bus and talking about them them being scared that Turkey was going to join the EU, and that's why they voted to exit the EU, things like that. Yeah, so it does come into my social world. There's definitely neighbours that fly the reform flag, and yeah, it's around us, definitely around us.
And is it something that you've incorporated in your writing in any way? Like, has that found its way into what you're grappling with?
Yeah, well, it pops up. For example, I was writing um, a free write the other day about. I think the prompt was the word lighthouse, And so I imagined that lighthouses were popping up like mushrooms all over the city. And then I imagined like the different reactions that would be taking place, where some people would be upset about the lighthouses popping up and they didn't want them in their own backyard. And other people would be more curious about the lighthouses, and some people would just want to wipe them out with some kind of toxic chemical, that so that some of that kind of starts to pop up. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I was looking at some, I do a final proofing at the very end when all the stories are edited, and I'm seeing I'm seeing threads in pe not necessarily directly addressing it, but I'm seeing it in people's work in various ways.
Oh yeah, that reminds me, because the piece that inspired the Drabble spoke to me very much as an immigration story, where this tree was uprooting itself with its water attached to its roots and was jumping over an expanse. And that really just, it immediately felt like an immigration story. And that's what I tried to put in my Drabble, was this sense of the pure miracle of immigration, that it's something that is so extreme and so it's almost impossible, like defying gravity, to actually take yourself and your home and put it in another country. And yet somehow people think that it's wrong to emigrate.
It's that's such a it's such an image-driven understanding of the experience.
Mm.
Yeah, and tell us a little more. Tell us the name of your story and anything of your drabble, anything else you'd like to share about it. This is in image in issue 4.2 coming out.
Yeah, so the Drabble is called Problem Solving. Um, and I really felt like the tree jumping over the expanse of water was the tree was literally solving a problem. Like there was a problem that perhaps it wasn't being hosted, perhaps it wasn't getting what it needed on one side of the water, and so it had to jump. It was just solving that problem. And then I had the idea that people do that too. I was reminded of this story of a polar bear. I think it was a Canadian polar bear, maybe, that swam across the Atlantic or something like that, because it wasn't getting what it needed, so it just swam and swam and swam until it until it found a place that could look after it. It's just that the miracle that takes place when someone is doing something out of such desperation that they're prepared to uproot, completely uproot.
I'm curious about like, do you have a connection to the immigration experience, either in your own life or people who you're close to?
Um, I'm, um, I suppose so. Um, my grandmother on my dad's side was was Jewish, and she wasn't actually Jewish. Sorry, she was of Jewish ethnicity, and she was persecuted by the Nazis, and she had she and her sister escaped the Nazis, but their parents were in Auschwitz. And she and her sister, with the help of my granddad, who was, I think, a reporter um, at the time, came over to the UK. Came out of Czechoslovakia. My grandma to the UK and her sister to the US. And it's interesting how that echoes through the generations. So my dad's sister ran away from home, or ran off with a guy that she met at a kibbutz, I believe, when she was a young adult. and then emigrated to Canada. Um, and I got married, and shortly after I got married, I went to live in Vietnam for 5 years. So there's a kind of like there's a leap, definitely, like an inherited leap in the family.
It's fascinating that again, that sort of image that you can take that image and it relates to your dad's sister and your experience, but the circumstances are very different from what you're describing from it's your paternal grandmother that had that.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So somehow that image has been passed down and it's been lived in different forms, kind of.
yeah. I wouldn't say it was an image because it's more like an impulse.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's something kind of almost deeper than memory. It's more of like a yeah, almost a genetic thing.
Yeah, genetic, soul energetic, but like a lived thing.
Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of it's related to inherited trauma in the way that that can kind of be almost impacting the genes.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And when you saw that image, like did it resonate? Did you feel just personally like a resonance with it when you saw it?
I didn't feel that resonance personally, but I felt it for all the stories, the immigration stories that I witnessed in my life. I suppose that
Very cool.
because my immigration experience has been entirely by choice. I've never had to up sticks, um, but I know that people have, and I know people who have.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Mm. And I
Just
think that's what the picture really spoke to me of. It was this necessity to move.
and thus the title. There's the
Mm.
problem that needed to be solved, right? Yeah, that's great. Just to shift gears, I'm wondering if you have a relationship in your life that's very sort of alive for you right now, and I'm curious how that might impact your writing or your writing practice.
So yeah, my husband is a writer as well, and he's a scientist by training, whereas I'm more of a literature person. Um, so it's been quite a long journey in terms of him claiming his identity as a writer, and it's been really hard for me to give him space and say, "Okay, you're allowed to be a writer," because
That's your thing, kind of.
it really did feel like it was my thing, and I was very reluctant to let him take that away, sort of so to speak. I didn't. I did see it as him taking away from me. Like if he was going to be a writer, then that would, yeah, somehow it was somehow a limited resource we were fighting over.
And yet the story of the travel from the last issue, it almost like it's like you both the bothness of it expanded
Mm.
everybody's experience.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely have come to more of a companionable place about it now. But he did a very long PhD in between our two children, which is almost like a second baby for us. Um, um, so I felt like I'd done my bit in supporting him to write, you know, to produce writing, and I just didn't kind of get it that he then needed to do creative writing as well. Sorry, I just gonna clear my throat.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. Um, what do you think makes a good relationship with an editor? And this is just, it's a personal preoccupation because I'm always thinking about like, not only how can we, as when I'm in the editor role, how can I make that a better experience for everybody, but I'm also curious about how writers show up with editors. How can we, when I'm wearing my writer hat, how can I encourage a relationship with an editor that's going to serve the work better?
Um, I don't think I've had enough experience of working with an editor to really comment on that.
Fair enough.
Um, both drabbles I've submitted have been turned around and said no changes. So there's not been much of a to and fro to and fro going on.
Fine.
Um, I actually I'm struggling with editing at the moment, because I think I've always gone through my life as someone who kind of turns out a good piece first time. Um, and I came from the olden days when we wrote in with a pen. And so I might do a rough draft and then copy up a neat draft, but that was it. There wasn't a lot of editing that you could do by hand. Um, Obviously, with poetry, that was different. And I'd have loads and loads of crossed out words here and there. But if you, if you were going to do a short story, you kind of needed to just open a vein. Um, and um, Also, as in terms of like academically, I often got really good feedback from my teachers, but I didn't get the detailed pulling this apart kind of editing that I would have liked. And then again at university, often my tutors were like kind of off the wall academic eccentrics. And so you never knew whether to trust their comments. And there would often be really like one note jotted in one margin about their particular obsession. So yeah, I think editing is incredible process, and I feel like I'm only just beginning on that journey.
All right. The next time I interview you, we'll have more to talk about that, hopefully.
Yes.
If you had any words of wisdom to impart to the other writers or people who are listening about relationships in the writing life, what would that be?
Are you talking about relationships advice to writers?
Well, and any words of wisdom having to do with the way that writers live their writing life, even in relationship, a lot of writers talk about their relationships with themselves and how those internal relationships have changed and evolved through their writing experiences. I don't know, it's a pretty broad question, but just any sort of advice. Writers are always looking for advice, so I like to see what.
I'm sure you've heard of The Artist's Way. I can't remember her name, the lady who wrote it, but a couple of Januaries, I think the previous January, I actually went through the whole Artist's Way process, in again with my husband. And that can be an incredibly um, powerful way to um, to work on your relationship with yourself as a writer, um, because it can really get buried, that whole like, I want to be a writer but I can't kind of, or yeah, I can't because I need to do XYZ. That narrative can really take over, the sort of victim narrative about why you can't be a writer. um, and the Artist's Way really helped me um, to remember what it was that drove me to keep trying. And there's some really nasty weeks where you have to confront your relationship with money. And for me, that was huge. That this kind of, well, writing's not going to make me money, therefore I can't do it. And the thought that I actually only can do things that might make me money. So that was really interesting. I guess that would be my piece of advice. Do the Artist's Way and do it properly.
I did it a while back. It was a great structure um, to kind of frame a bunch of things that ultimately really did deepen my relationship with what I was doing and help me take it more seriously.
Yeah, I think that's what it did for me. I took myself more seriously as a writer, whereas before it was just at the back of my mind, but I didn't realize just how powerfully it was at the back of my mind.
And I think the thing about money, it's something I've been thinking about in relationship to Hodgepodge because
Mm.
there's been a few points where, we thought about, well, do we want to pay people? Do we want to, have a larger website? Do we want to, things and we ultimately decided not to, um, because we want to spend as much time as possible on the writing, the editing, and the creating. And the second you start to involve money, your energy is going to the money. It starts to become necessary. You have to focus on money. And to keep it out of the commerce stream, it's been really, really helpful. And I think there's some gifts about not getting paid. Again,
Yeah.
once if you have like I have an editing, I've worked in the corporate world and I have a stream of money. My basic needs are taken care of. Obviously, we all need that. But once that's true, once that's taken care of, I think we do have more choices than we think around involving money.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think for a lot of years in my life, I was trying to create plan A, plan B, plan C so that I could write. And it was always like, I need to make money so I can write. But I became so focused on the making money part that I never actually thought got round to the writing. Um, and so I I kind of decided that I was going to focus on just having a steady day job and then having a couple of days off a week to write. And that has been so helpful because I'm not trying to monetize anything else apart from just my day job.
And does that give you the freedom in terms of your artistic expression in what you're writing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just feel like I'm not putting pressure on myself anymore. And it's really good. I also run a family camp. Um, that's been like more of a volunteer process. And again, I'm not trying to make money out of that. I'm just doing it creatively, and I just love doing that.
It's great. And I think to encourage one another in projects that are meaningful is something that we can do in our relationships as artists and to affirm things that don't make money as inherently valuable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any last words before we say goodbye? I'm so excited. Oh, I wanted to ask, where can we find more of your work if we want to read? I want to read more of your stuff.
Uh, I'm not really sure. Most of the places where I was published, like before, have kind of the magazines have dissolved. Oh, I have a haiku on Haiku Universe,
Oh,
which
that's
is like
great. I'll get the URL so I can put that that's great.
in other words, only in very, very small places.
As is the haiku way.
Yeah,
Well, I'm really, really, really thrilled that you submitted a second travel and hopefully I don't know if you'd be interested in doing a longer story, but it would be great to have more of your beautiful expression in Hodgepodge. I've just become a fan just from these two travels. So I really
thank
appreciate.
you.
Yeah, and thanks so much for being willing to do the interview.
No worries, it's been fun. Okay, uh, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.